During the period of 1 January through 1 June 1963, the United States Air Force continued to support and strengthen the Vietnamese Air Force. Considerable improvement of operational and support facilities was noteworthy. Tactical air strikes, air reconnaissance, close air support, and air logistics were greatly increased to meet the expanding military operations against the rebel forces of the Viet Cong. The focal point for air operations remains at Tan Son Nhut Air Base, 5 miles from the heart of Saigon. Here, the 2nd Air Division, Pacific Air Forces, commanded by Brigadier General Roland Anthus, directs the air operations in close coordination with the Vietnamese Air Force, known as VNAF, and the Vietnamese Army, known as ARVN. Overall military assistance to the Republic of Vietnam remains under the direction of the Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, headed by General Paul D. Harkins, with headquarters in Saigon. The joint USAF-VNAF air operations has made new advances in effective action against the Viet Cong, particularly in the remote VC strongholds, which are nearly impenetrable by ARVN ground forces. As a result of tactical air action during the past 5 months, the Viet Cong have suffered damaging losses of men and equipment. Their supply lines have been seriously affected by fast-reacting air missions capable of immediately responding to new intelligence on VC movements. In the role of training and advising the VNAF, the 2nd Air Division units continue to plan and fly combat missions as instructors and military observers. They participate in combat airstrikes as partners with their VNAF counterparts when the VNAF does not have the capability or the resources to do the job. Air logistics and air reconnaissance are still, for the most part, handled by USAF units and personnel, while VNAF personnel are being trained for future participation. In order to present a composite view of the progress that has been made in Vietnam, one must compare the situation a year ago with what it is today. First, let us take a look at the country itself. This is a country of many contrasts. In the south, the vast delta of the Mekong River is ever-changing with the tides and the monsoons, where the boundaries of rivers and canals lose their identity in the heavy rainfall, and the land often becomes a sea of mud. In the high ground area to the north, wild steaming jungles, lush green mountains form a diffused maze of tough primeval terrain. This is a rough country for any kind of war, but the Viet Cong use this geography to their own advantage. Interdiction from the air is a constant challenge. Air reconnaissance is hampered by nature's natural camouflage. This is a country where roads are few, where supply lines by surface travel are nearly impossible, where supply by air is the only answer to the logistic problem. Presently, we're working out of 6 air bases. Tan Son Nhut, just outside of Saigon, Bien Hoa, 35 miles northwest of Saigon, Soc Trang, to the south in the Mekong Delta area, Nha Trang on the eastern coast, Pleiku in the north-central area, and Da Nang on the northern seacoast. These are all active bases from which joint air operations are launched. Probably the most dramatic indication of the progress in Vietnam is the changing faces of the air bases. Little more than a year ago, the 6 key bases were, for the most part, outmoded airfields dating back to the occupation of Vietnam by the Japanese during World War II. The French colonial occupation after the war, until 1954, added little sophistication. This was a period of transition. The bases were humble in every respect. Tent cities and field kitchens were the daily fare for living. There were dirt runways, crude roads, and only the bare necessities to support aircraft operations. The Air Force had too little of everything except the initiative to get on with the job. Today, the scene has changed, and it'll be changing even more in the ensuing months. Construction of facilities at all bases has moved ahead at a steady pace. From the air, the changes are readily apparent. These recent views show the effects of the progressing buildup. The contrast between then and now is most apparent when you inspect such facilities as the new mess hall at Tan Son Nhut. A year ago, the mess facilities looked like this. Although many of the men still occupy tents, there are new quarters under construction. This is a typical billet assigned to some of the senior NCOs. Nothing plush, but adequate. What used to be a third-rate runway at Ben Hoa is now a well-constructed 5,700-foot runway. Construction is underway to make this base a primary center for combat air operations. These quarters are adequate and easily constructed to meet the needs. There's nothing fancy about this washroom. As in the construction of all new facilities, you will find no luxury item. Radar and communication nets have been greatly improved in the last year. This is a new site at Da Nang. Here is a new and much needed control tower. May marks the beginning of the monsoon season in southern Vietnam. Last year, bases like Soc Trang and Ben Hoa were a quagmire of mud. Part of the problem is being solved by building new roads, resurfacing old ones, and even sidewalks are being constructed. But there's still a long way to go, and operating in this Asian country will never be easy. But we can say it is getting better. Air activities have been on the increase as facilities have improved. These are the aircraft that are carrying the fight to the Viet Cong. The B-26 is still at work and doing a good job. The 1st Air Commandos Detachment 2 at Ben Hoa keep this bird busy on ground strafing, napalm, and bomb runs. The Air Commandos operation is known as Farm Gate. There are 14 B-26s presently operating in Vietnam. The teammate to the B-26 is the two-place T-28, which is a training aircraft fitted out for combat. Machine gun pods, rocket launchers, and bomb racks have made this quite a reliable weapon for counterinsurgency warfare. The 2nd Air Division presently has 13 T-28s in operation and are getting more of these aircraft. Farm Gate combat aircraft are jointly manned by VNAF-USAF air crews, and all air orders are directed by the Joint Air Operations Center at Tan Son Nhut. The Vietnamese Air Force also flies the A-1H. American pilots do not fly in the A-1Hs since they are a single-place aircraft. The A-1H carries bombs, rockets, and napalm, and has proven to be a very effective weapon system. The Farm Gate missions are usually tactical airstrikes against VC installations, supply lines, and areas of troop concentration. Between 1 January and 1 June, 14,582 sorties have been flown by the Farm Gate units. The missions accounted for 1,369 Viet Cong killed in action and 91 wounded. In addition, there were 1,830 structures and 113 watercraft destroyed as the result of farm gate operations. T-28s frequently perform escort duty for trains and truck convoys. Until T-28s flew top cover, trains and trucks were extremely vulnerable to ambush. Since the T-28s have been employed, there has been only one incident of ambush of a truck convoy. All trains have traveled without incident. The major portion of air reconnaissance in Republic Vietnam is now handled by an operation known as Able Mable. The PACAF Tactical Air Reconnaissance Squadrons from Japan and Okinawa furnish 6 RF-101 aircraft and air crews to meet 2nd Air Division's requirements. Able Mable formerly operated out of Don Muang Air Base, Thailand, but were moved to Tan Son Nhut in December 1962. The RF-101 is capable of high-definition day photo reconnaissance. Since the arrival of Able Mable in Republic Vietnam, the demands for reconnaissance have increased to staggering proportions. Target selections for airstrikes is almost completely dependent on photo intelligence gathered by Able Mable reconnaissance. In the past 4 months, over 321 sorties were flown, producing approximately 581,000 aerial photographs. All photo processing is handled by the USAF Photo Processing Cell at Tan Son Nhut. The VNAF photo interpreters have become very expert in gathering target intelligence from the photographs. Late in April, 2 RB-57s were also added to the inventory. This jet recon aircraft carries its own starting cartridges and requires no ground power equipment to start engines. It is excellent for short runway operation and is highly maneuverable at both high and low altitudes and performs on a par with jet fighters. To date, the RB-57 is operating very successfully as a reconnaissance aircraft in Republic Vietnam. The only other reconnaissance capability in Republic Vietnam is 4 glass-nosed RB-26s operated by Farmgate. Their mission is primarily post-strike target assessment and night visual reconnaissance. Air logistics in Republic Vietnam is the lifeline to the Vietnamese ground forces and the U.S. Army Special Forces in the field. This phase of logistics is handled by a special airlift force in the 2nd Air Division. Mule Train, as the operation is known, has 3 squadrons using the C-123 Provider, a rugged and versatile cargo plane. Mule Train operates primarily out of Tan Son Nhut, with a smaller operation at Da Nang, servicing areas in the northern part of the country. Combat troop delivery is routine for these air crews, whether it's an airdrop or slipping into a remote landing strip. Mule Train resupplies from the air and get their cargo on target with a high degree of accuracy. Often they're called upon to airdrop food, equipment, and even live animals into remote villages. The business of hauling cargo in and out of dirt runways is a daily operation, and the C-123 is well suited for short runways and rough terrain. Mule Train is geared to a kind of you call, we haul activity. During the period 1 January, 1 June of this year, 12,561 tons of cargo were airlifted to various locations in Republic Vietnam. There were also 8,057 troop carrier sorties flown, involving airdrops and point-to-point delivery. 59,814 passengers were airlifted. Dirty 30 is the VNAF counterpart to Mule Train. They operate C-47 aircraft on similar logistic missions. Because of the shortage of VNAF pilots, our Air Force has furnished 30 pilots to fly the tactical drops and resupply missions for the Vietnamese. In an operation such as the one we have in the Republic of Vietnam, there are lost